Hello, container fans, and welcome back to our exclusive series with Google, Passport to Containers, where we take you on the end-to-end journey everyone is trying to navigate as we step into our AI future. The focus of today's show is going to be Kubernetes, AI, and Inference, with a bonus sweet treat when we talk about cake. Make sure you tune in all the way to this fantastic interview. Without further ado, our wonderfully curated guests, John Belamaric and Jago Macleod. Thank you so much for taking the time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
This is so exciting. You know your reputations precede you. Bobby has said nothing but the best, and Jago, I'm going to go to you first because he refers to you as a bit of an OG at Google. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your tenure history there and how that relates to OSS and Kubernetes?
Sure, thanks for having us. So I joined Google a little over 10 years ago. And I interviewed at Google. It was right about the time of the Nest acquisition. So
I noticed that when doing my homework. Were you on the Nest team and got absorbed in? Or
no, I joined Google, just happened to be at that time. And then you do sort of a team fit tour. And it seemed like an interesting project to work on. So I went to Nest, and it was a really fascinating social experiment of sort of ex-Apple execs getting absorbed by Google execs. And that culture change was really interesting.
Well, I can imagine that. We talk about this a fair bit on the show, but smaller teams coming into a bigger engine, Nest still has its brand, it still has that ownership. It says a lot about how the Google team welcomes in their new friends when these sorts of things happen, which I think is really interesting. John, tell me a little bit about your journey. You've also been at Google almost 7 years now.
That's right.
Borderline OG status as well. Curious, did you go on the same Team Fit tour?
No, I joined really specifically to work on Kubernetes. So I came in, I got involved in Kubernetes in the open source community and worked on bringing core DNS into Kubernetes. So I was working on Kubernetes for about a year, and I met a bunch of people at Google, a bunch of people in the community, and had the opportunity to interview. And really, I was the only reason I moved my family across the country was to be able to work on Kubernetes.
Wow, that is awesome. A lot of Kubernetes in the house. Shout out to all of our Kubernetes fans watching. It's one of the few unique words in tech that I think my mother even knows what it is.
That's impressive.
Given our passion. I know Robin is an OG. We're going to be talking about Kubernetes. We're going to be talking about open source. We're also going to be talking about AI training and inference and how it relates to both today. Jago, I want to come back to you. Obviously been a voyage since you've joined, but also from Kubernetes 10 years ago versus Kubernetes and what people are doing with containers now, pretty dramatic. What is that journey been like?
Well, I think early on, the end users really were the community. And so we didn't have a lot of PM work going on. It wasn't a lot of communicating with customers, asking what they wanted. Like, we were the world's leading experts in containers and container orchestration. We really were bringing what we had at Borg into the open source world. And so we moved really fast. And there was a lot of tolerance for pain early on. We ran production workloads we probably shouldn't have at that point. And we just ran really, really fast. Then it sort of exploded into the ecosystem, and there was a huge explosion of projects in the CNCF. You look at the landscape page in the CNCF, and it's pretty dizzying at this point to figure out what do you need, what's useful, what's necessary, and sort of the next round of adopters really don't care about learning about the elegance of Kubernetes API, or they just want to continue to sell what they're selling, or manage their financial services. So the usability, the simplicity has had to improve over time.
Absolutely. You just gave a talk on this last KubeCon, correct? So speaking of the tolerance for pain, it's now less pain, more gain, right? So you see us shifting into a world where we're finally decreasing the complexity and mutability of Kubernetes.
Well, I think the capabilities have expanded a lot.
I saw that.
So I think the core has settled down some, but we're in a new wave of innovation now. And so really now it's about the balance of stability and innovation. We have to move fast and not break things. We have to evolve to meet the needs of the next trillion core hours and still keep banks and healthcare systems up and running. So it's really hard.
Yeah, especially with the investment that folks are putting into this. Move fast and break things. You're breaking much more expensive things than you might have been breaking a few years ago. John, what do you think? Tell me about your observations on this journey as well.
Well, no. So I think exactly like we spent the time, we spent, before the sort of impact of AI and ML on Kubernetes and the industry in general, we were working really hard to work on stability in Kubernetes, right? Because we had banks and financial institutions and things running on it, we wanted to make sure that, any change we made was super safe, and so we put a lot of effort into kind of ramping up the processes around making it safer and more controlled. And then this other opportunity came where it was clear that as a project, we needed to shift. And so we still keep all of those safety constraints, but we are having to invest in building out these new the functionality for these new workloads and adapting Kubernetes to these new workloads while still allowing the existing APIs. And it really comes down a lot to APIs, right? Stability, yes. Upgrades, yes, but stability of APIs, because we have tooling, ecosystem, everything built on top of those APIs, they can't change, they can't go away. You have to sort of be additive about it and do it in a way that allows the new things to use the new APIs, the older things to continue running as they've always run. And it's hard, and it also does lead to a little more complexity. So then the secondary challenge on that is, how do you keep the user experience from becoming overwhelming?
I was just going to ask about that, because not only are you balancing the complexities from a product roadmap perspective, as well as the architecture, to your point, of what runs on what and how, but one of the things that I know we all agree on, the Kubernetes community is one of the strongest, most passionate developer communities, open source side of things. I can imagine there's a lot of dialogue that you need to have with your community. How often are you interfacing with your developers and users of the platform as you're making this transition specifically?
Every day. I mean, right, it's constant.
And it comes at different layers of the cake.
Yes.
So we have direct conversations with our end users, sometimes because there was a production incident outage. They hit a new limit that we've never seen before. And so those can get kind of spicy. But generally, we work through them and we co-innovate to find the right solution. And our customers really appreciate that about working with Google. And then through the community also. So we have customers, our counterparts, and it's a really strange process, right? We collaborate with other companies on some feature, and then we compete for the same small list of customers of that feature. It's a really strange system, and it seems to work out pretty well.
Well, what you're describing there is precisely the tension between open source and private. And I think they're necessary. I think it is the balance that, may the best man win when it comes to charming the customer. But on the flip side, we all don't need to be reinventing the wheel. We should be building the best solutions together. Talk to me a little bit about the differences for folks using the open source side of things versus operating on Google Cloud and the benefits thereof, or what people can expect. Jago, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think there's kind of two directions. There's we on GKE have spent an enormous amount of time automating, creating a managed version of Kubernetes, and we're world-class in automated upgrades and a lot of the management aspects. A lot of our customers are multi-environment, either on-prem and GCP or another cloud and GCP. And no matter how good some of that automation and management service is, they can't or won't use it because consistency is more important than being best in class on a specific environment.
That's a really good point.
And so we have both kinds of customers that run on GKE and those that run on GCE, open source Kubernetes in some way. And we're evolving so that there's a common substrate that both of those sets of customers can use. Our third-party customers who build their own platforms and our own internal GKE platform. And one thing that we really focus on is in GKE in the ability to replace a node if something goes wrong. So for example, if a customer SSHs into a node and makes some changes that we don't know what that change is, we can't reliably replace that node or create another one if they scale. And so we always try to figure out, what are you trying to customize? Can we productize that and make it part of the product roadmap? So we kind of see it as a conga line of customer customizes their own environment, and then we see trends and figure out what's the right abstraction and then build that into the product. And that's a pretty unique approach in this market.
Well, it's more collaborative, I would say, than some of the traditional service-oriented approaches. Also got to point out, you've referenced cake, spice, and a conga line. I am coming to your next half hour. I am already seeing what we can do.
You got to mix metaphors.
KubeCon next.
Right?
We might have to, we're going to have to get Bobby involved in this. John, I'm curious because you came to Google specifically for Kubernetes. Love that passion, that focus. You're probably talking to a lot of different, both community members as well as developers, as well as companies making big spend decisions on what they're building on right now as we enter this AI revolution. What are some of the trends that you're seeing, and what are some of the common speed bumps that you're noticing that people are hitting that you're helping them through?
That's a good question. I think that my focus for the last year or so has been really kind of tightly focused on trying to enable, or work in upstream Kubernetes to enable Kubernetes to work better for AI and ML workloads. And so some of the speed bumps we see in those areas are just that Kubernetes was originally designed for a different set of use cases. And so things like hardware, we were, in a microservices type of HTTP world, right? We're trying to make hardware more and more fungible, and more, sort of like a CPU is a CPU is a CPU. But for the newer workloads, right, a GPU is not a GPU is not a GPU, and
it is not.
Right.
No.
So, some of the fundamental primitives within Kubernetes kind of elided the complexity intentionally, right? Because we're trying to make that fungibility work in a world of infinite cloud resources that are always available and can be scaled infinitely. So that's not the world we live in. What are the changes we need to make? And so obtainability of GPUs, of course, has been a big issue lately. So
I haven't heard anyone talking about it.
No, nobody's talking about it. And so, one of the things we're doing within Kubernetes, within this, what we call dynamic resource allocation project, which is really about helping Kubernetes understand the hardware better than it used to, is we're allowing people to be able to sort of specify how they ask for hardware in a little bit of a fuzzy way, but with constraints. So they can say, well, I could take this type of GPU, or I could take 2 of that type of GPU. And now they only have to write that workload specification once, but and they have some control over what hardware they get, but there's also some flexibility so the platform can make a decision and say, well, somebody else is using all of those, but you know what, I've got a bunch of these over here, I'll give you a bunch of those. So it's sort of like trying to shift the work of making all of these decisions from the user, the human, to the machine, and that way, when you're asleep at night, if some other job finishes, you can get the thing you wanted, and your workload will run by the time you wake up in the morning, right? So it's shifting more work to the machine. So that's one of the speed bumps, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good call out. I was actually reading something by Jonathan Ross, ex-Googler, on the TPU team originally today about the TPU and LPU, and I mean in this conversation also GPUs. How many things can I say that ends in PU in the next 4 seconds? But the key. The crux of some of this, beyond workloads, is inference. And I really want to dig in here because that's the nugget that makes AI real for most of the end users. That's the nugget that tips over the true viability of a lot of the efforts that are going on across industries and verticals right now. So how have you been optimizing GKE and your OSS projects for AI inference and training? Because I can imagine it requires a bit of strategy, and you're also moving at the speed of light right now. Jago, I'll start with you since you're giving me the good smile.
Sure. It is a little bit forward-looking on the inferencing side. So most of our really large customers in the AI space so far have been training foundational models. And we don't think there are thousands more of those. We probably don't need thousands more of these foundation models. And so we have a hypothesis that as that new hardware becomes available that's best in class for training, that the hardware we're selling right now for training will become more useful in inference. Inference is something that not many companies do today. I don't think we've seen the sort of Gen AI native winners emerge yet. It's sort of the chat use cases. It's not really deeply baked into every business yet, but we think it will be. And Kubernetes, as John was mentioning, was built for a different set of use cases. It's not great at training today, but it's useful enough to add value. And so what we really want to do on the inferencing side is make Kubernetes Gen AI inferencing aware. Like it's actually
Good
evolve
delineation.
it, not succeed in spite of Kubernetes, but succeed because of Kubernetes.
Right.
And so a lot of the work we're doing adjacent to the DRA work is in that area. In-place pod updates, so you can scale up and down pods at runtime without resizing them. Pod
huge.
level resources. So the scheduling aspect and auto scaling becomes a lot more interesting when you can scale a pod or add a new one.
Right.
You can do this at different layers in the cake again. And so that's the big push, is making the idea that inference is the next web app is a term that we can talk about a lot.
I love this. I've been really hot all year, and all my analysts' work right now is around taking AI beyond the browser. So like exactly to your point, it's that touch point, whether that's an edge device on-prem. It doesn't matter where it is, but it's that human interaction. John, I see you know.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I think that's right. And in some ways, right, inference is a little bit more like the original use cases that Kubernetes was designed, right? So you've got load that comes in, in varying ways that you have to scale up for and things like that. So, I mean, I think that, I don't know, as Jago said, we're trying to evolve Kubernetes. The hardware relationship's one of it. That's both for training and inference. But the other one is, I see there's a Ray sticker on your laptop here, right? So there are AI and ML frameworks that are used to sort of either training or inference, and we want to ensure that Kubernetes is the best place to run those, right? Right now, Kubernetes is the default place to run those, and it's a good place to run those, but we want to make it the best place to run those so that those inference workloads, Kubernetes as a project really wins those workloads.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, go ahead.
That is something that we've strived for in the Kubernetes project for a long time, is not to do everything for everyone, but to be really clear about where the boundary is, and then sort of create opportunities for adjacent organizations or communities. And so, we envision a future where businesses have to run Ray and Slurm and Spark and Kubeflow all next to each other, and the next framework that doesn't exist yet emerges. The platform team shouldn't have to learn how to run that on bare metal or VMs even, and build the security model and figure out how to charge back and all of this that Kubernetes does well today. So we're working really closely with those communities to make it, support them better so that they don't succeed in spite of the platform.
Well, you want people to keep coming back and scaling up and telling their friends because it's a positive experience, not because it was the only experience you could have.
Right.
And we've all had those experiences, particularly in technology, and unfortunately probably in our human lives as well. But I think that's really important. All the research shows us that even though we've had this acceleration with AI and we are seeing greater adoption with Kubernetes, many companies and industries are still very early in their container journey. What would be your, maybe for each of you, we'll call it like 1 to 3 top pro tips for that team or those architects who might be watching this show right now as they're trying to think, oh my goodness, I'm balancing, figuring out AI, ROI. I have heard all this stuff about containers and Kubernetes, and I know this is a tool that's going to help me in this. What would you like to tell them right now? Jago, I'll start with you again.
Migrations are very hard. It could be a migration from on-prem to the cloud. It could be a migration but from one cloud to another. In almost every case, what you get, if you're lucky, is what you thought you already had. And one anti-pattern I would caution against is to make it the might as well project from hell. While we do this, we might as well also fix this thing that's been bothering me for 5 years. That's when projects stretch into years. Where we see a lot of success is they set up a new environment in GCP on GKE, for example, and start one workload at a time, kind of migrating workloads, or lighting up new workloads in a new environment, and not trying to shift everything at the same time. That becomes really tricky.
Yeah, some great advice I got from some Stanford authors way back in the day was set the bar low and clear it often. You don't have to clear the 20-foot hurdle the first day. Do a little one, do a little, oh, okay, this is how this works. Toggle this, toggle that. Get the team buy-in, and then it's much easier to tackle some of these tasks. John, do you have any other great insights?
I mean, I think it applies to a lot of things in life, right? Do the things that you're good at, right? So maybe it's a little self-serving. As Google Cloud, we have GKE. We do a really good job of all the management aspects. And so why should you have to learn to do that, right? Why do you have to learn to do the upgrades and the migrations and the maintenance windows? And getting stuck on an old version of Kubernetes is a very dangerous thing to do. And so what I've seen a lot is companies come in and they build out an open source Kubernetes environment and they're all excited at first, but then they get busy with actual work that delivers value to their company, not building out infrastructure. And then when the next version comes out in 4 months and another one in 4 months, and another one in 4 months, and wait a second, now that one I'm running is not getting security patches anymore, like I have to do it. And
Right.
so like, don't try and do everything yourself, right? Rely on this community and these companies and vendors that's what they do day in and day out.
This is a great point. Almost every other migration before this one, before the one to being cloud native, has been change everything, get everything just right, and then don't touch it anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
This is not that world. Something somewhere is always changing at every second of every day. So this idea of dynamic stability, like make small changes, and as you say, set the bar low and clear it often. It's make small changes that you can easily reverse.
Yeah.
And that's a really different mental model than what many of our more enterprise customers are used to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good point. So how, I can imagine you have to coach them a bit on that particular journey. And also, when people think of open source, they don't always first think of money or ways to monetize that in the private sector. What is that conversation like? John, I'll start with you first this time.
I mean, I think that in open source, the way I view it, and my opinion, right, everything gets
That's what we're asking for here, don't worry.
Everything gets commoditized, right? So everything we work on at, in the open source community, and whether you can build something in a proprietary way, but it doesn't work on other clouds, it doesn't work on-prem for other people if it's just built for your particular environment. And eventually, somebody else is going to build the same thing. They're going to say, hey, there's a whole nother market out here that's really big, not just that one vendor. And if this thing has value, I'm going to have a pure play startup that maybe makes this solution for this group and covers everything. And then that has the momentum, and then your little proprietary thing, your customers are asking you to migrate to this open source thing. So I think that everything gets commoditized, and the kind of treadmill is that we need to be ahead of what our customers need. We need to build the things and be able to kind of build the better version. Like a lot of times with open source, we're starting with an open set of APIs, an open source implementation, but proprietary vendors can build their own implementations as long as they adhere to the APIs, and those can be better, right? And they can be faster. They can put more investment into them. So those are kind of the strategies for monetizing the open source work we do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One thing that Bobby and I are really passionate about, and part of why we wanted to do this series, was not just to make it digestible, cake pun intended, and to make these conversations accessible no matter where you are on your journey. And since we're all kind of on a new journey as we take on more complicated or heavier AI workloads in our innovation across the board, is making sure the next generation comes along with us, and making sure that we talk about democratizing various technologies over the years, and that doesn't happen unless we actually upskill people and empower minds that may not have been sitting at the table before. So what would your advice be to someone who's watching this conversation and really excited about Kubernetes or AI infrastructure, and it's just coming out of the gate? Where do they get started? Jago, I'll go with you right now.
I think building on what John was talking about earlier is, only do what only you can do, and outsource the other stuff. So, many of our customers coming to us now have either tried to build a DIY Kubernetes platform or run in another provider, and they're hitting scaling bottlenecks. Early on in the adoption of cloud native technologies, most customers want to be special. They think they have extra special needs, and they have to customize everything and manage everything themselves and tweak it, and they want access to every knob. And the truth is, being special is really just code for risk. And so the more like your neighbors you are, the less risk you're of finding new edge cases that haven't been found elsewhere. And so I think I would say you adopt a managed service, you only do what only you can and need to do, because it's hard enough already. I've worked places where there was not enough to do and we had to invent hard things to do. This is not that time. There's plenty of hard work to do right now, so don't go and find new hard work to do.
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, for sanity, it's good advice in general. What about you, John?
I mean, I think that sort of following out of that, it's don't strive for perfection, right? Like the successive drafts, rough drafts of anything you're trying to do, just get something working, right? There's a sort of we talk about bias toward action, right? It's just like make something work, see how it happens, learn from that, and then take the next step, because every piece of code I've ever written will eventually be thrown away. You know, sometimes sometimes within like months, right? You know, and that's normal, right? That's because we learn, and so don't get overly invested or overly emotionally attached to your project or your code, because it's going to be thrown away pretty soon. And do the next thing, learn from it. It's the knowledge you're building that's most important.
Yeah, don't be precious.
Yes.
We're very much in the sandbox stage, I think, with a lot of innovation that's happening right now, and that's a good thing. We forget sometimes the joy of the things you weren't expecting to make.
It's
when
fun,
you
right?
made a drip castle or pulled this together or saw what worked, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, those building blocks could actually lead to something pretty structurally profound. Yeah. So I like that. Stay creative and have fun. Taking off your super awesome Google hats right now, what do you hope that AI does for our friends, our families, our future on a personal level? John, you're looking pensive. I'm going to you.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's a tough question, because, you know, I think that taking away drudgery is an obvious thing, right? Like,
amen.
Right? Nobody likes drudgery,
yeah.
and every job has some drudgery. Everything in life has some struggle, but struggle is also good. So I'm actually, it's a question that I'm not sure personally how I feel about it. Like, I certainly don't want it taking away the creative aspects we do, but I definitely want it to address the drudgery. So, you know, I think I do get a kick out of enabling people to do more with less. And so I think that it absolutely hits that sweet spot. And so I hope that it will enable us as a species to do more with less in a way that we've never been able to do before.
Less pain, more gain, just like Jago said. What about you, Jago?
So my passion, inspiration, motivation is accelerating human innovation. And I think every age has a place where you can make the most impact in that direction. And I think we are squarely in the center of that right now. I think this is healthcare. I think this is exploration. It's science. We need to accelerate in some dimension. And I think this is a great opportunity for that. So I love the drudgery comment. If I never have to buy another plane ticket, I will be thrilled. And that would be enough on its own.
Literally had this conversation with my mother this weekend as I was buying a plane ticket while visiting. I'm like, sorry, I just have to do this, and it's got to be like this.
Still be like this.
Yeah.
Right. Still so tedious. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we all agree on the drudgery. I mean, and I think that's when doomers say, "Oh, AI might take your job." No, it's going to make your job suck less. It's going to take all the bad parts out of that, or most of the less pleasurable parts. And
I think we're going to learn how to use it. Right now, it's so up in the air, like how to really make it, enable us to do our jobs better, enable everything. It's very early. It's very early. So.
Which makes it so exciting. I look forward to when we look back on this conversation in a few years.
We laugh at ourselves.
Yeah, yes. I mean, to your point of getting work out there, if you're not laughing at the conversation you had a few years ago, or knowing that your code's going to get thrown out eventually, you're not aware of what this industry looks like. I mean, we're all learning, and I think that's also what's really important. And I hope the audience takes away from this is, you're two incredibly brilliant men. Everyone we've had as a part of the Passport to Containers series has been top tier, expert in their field, very well respected, and we're all still kind of like, let's see what happens next, and in a great way, right?
Yeah.
We're here to be the right partners and learn from each other, but I think there's a really refreshing humility from the industry right now where we know that we don't know, but we know if we work on it together, it'll be better. So let's just go build, which is just it's a very inspiring thing to be able to see. Do you have any use cases that you can share with me, and then we'll wrap this up, of stories that have you really excited right now with the customers that you're getting to talk to, or examples of industries doing fascinating things that might get the wheels turning for our audience. Or if you're just full of secrets, that's totally fine too.
Not secrets, but one thing I'm really excited about is improving the Kubernetes contributor experience. It's sort of started to become more and more terrible over the last several years. We're not replacing the most senior people at a fast enough clip, or adding to them. So the same small group of people end up overwhelmed 3 times a year as we try to get to a kept freeze or a code freeze. And I think, as we talked about, eliminating some of the drudgery and the early passes, a lot of the work in the Kubernetes project itself can be accelerated or eliminated by using some of this technology. So we're building it, it's super fascinating, but we're not actually getting benefit out of it ourselves, and I would love to invest in that a bit more.
Well, and that definitely goes straight to that accelerating human innovation in the, certainly on in our little patch, right? Like, so we spend a lot of time doing things that, maybe if 80% of it could be done by a machine, like that would be like, 5-fold the number of people in the project, right? So.
Yeah, or we even see it with cancer PhDs. I just learned something fascinating right now. There's a wonderful situation going on at Memorial Sloan Kettering where they're able to get people their PhD in 3 years instead of 4. Now, when you think about that in terms of human impact of all of these researchers being able to do more and deliver, we're talking about curing cancer and stuff there.
Well, and it's not only that extra year, but it's just, if you're multiplying their...
Well, exactly, it compounds. That interest in intellectual capital compounds big time.
I think those are the applications I'm most excited about, is just like the healthcare applications, or the research, right? The science and research that you mentioned. Those, I think, there's so many intractable problems, or problems that have seemed intractable that maybe become tractable.
Yeah. I think we're kind of getting a z-axis. We think about the XY, but I feel like lately we've got this kind of new dimension, and we're going to be able to solve problems that we haven't been able to solve. It kind of reminds me of a little bit when, I'm really going on a tangent, but when I reading A Wrinkle in Time when we were kids, and all of a sudden you think about the 4th dimension, and I kind of feel like right now when I have been thinking about what's possible, or what's going to be possible, or what we'll see as a result of all these collective efforts and the creativity out there in the world. To your earlier point, creativity isn't going anywhere. We are now going to be able to creatively solve things in a way that we have not been able to solve them before, which is really exciting. And I find myself, I may have been dreaming about it, says what a nerd I am, but I find myself thinking, whoa, like we'll be able to connect these dots where people are communicating too, in a way, on both sides of these fences to really optimize the human experience and human innovation. John, Jago, this has been absolutely fantastic. One final question for you, because this is fun. We'll have to make sure it's part of the show next time. What's your favorite kind of cake, since that was our analogy?
Cheesecake, New York cheesecake.
Oh, full calorie. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
As a New Yorker, you're speaking my language right there. What about you, John?
No pause.
Yeah, no hesitation.
It is a difficult choice, but I am actually, and maybe this will be a shameful admission, I actually really like carrot cake.
There's no shame.
Or actually, it's the cream cheese frosting that's really does it for me.
It's just a vehicle.
It's just a vehicle for the frosting.
We're a carrot cake household. My mother and I are carrot cake fans. I love that. Sometimes I really throw the wild card on the cake and say I want a lemon bar. So it's okay.
Lemon bar's good.
But no shame to the carrot cake. We'll make sure that we have...
I didn't say fruit cake.
Those are actually 2 ends of the cake spectrum, which makes sense why you work well together. The full calorie New York cheesecake and the carrot cake, which is like, I'm trying to be healthy, but really
wow.
Diet cake.
Exactly.
As long as it's
not a diet
cake. Flan disturbs me. The self-healing dessert, when you stab it and it heals itself, is wrong. I will go on record with that.
Creme brulees.
It's a different thing altogether.
But flan, I am not a big flan fan either. Our Spanish friends will hate us for that. But
folks, and this is exactly how they go through each of the product sets in your GK experience, your Google Cloud experience. It's making sure that it is not flan, but it is instead creme brulee. What a fantastic interview. Jago and John, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, anytime. We'll make sure we've got fun, sweet treats. And hopefully you found this interview as tasty as we did over here. This is the 4th in our wonderful Passport to Containers series, special exclusive series with Google. We're here in Palo Alto, California. My name's Savannah Peterson. You're watching theCUBE, the leading source for enterprise tech news.